Podcast. I'm here with my co-host G-Dog. G-Dog, how are we today?
Great, thanks, Angus. So excited to be in Bolton to meet with Ken.
And Ken, how are you today? It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the
I'm
podcast.
pretty good. I've been up since 4 o'clock, so I'm wide awake. Yeah, I'm good.
Fantastic. Well, let's go right back to the start, if that's okay with you. And obviously, we're going to talk about the charity and the challenge that you're going to be doing later in the episode.
Yeah, okay.
But I'd love to start with, what was your childhood in Bolton like, and how did it influence your values around health and discipline?
Well, it was a difficult time. It was just before the Second World War broke out. I was, born in 1935, so I'm before years of age when the war broke out. And schooling was pretty awful. I think most of the teachers had been called up into the forces, and I wasn't particularly academically driven at all. And my dad had always been into fitness. He was a former professional boxer and a former amateur boxer, and he was also into weights because he noticed a young kid who was coming through the ranks when he was quite mature, who were knocking everybody out, and he found out that he was using barbells and dumbbells to gain his strength. So he was pretty keen on me getting into weights in some kid. Top of that, I was scrawny. I only weighed about 6 or 7 stone at the time, and that's how I got into training. And I think he pushed me, my mum pushed me, to be more physically involved, knowing that I wouldn't be very good at the academic stuff. So that's how I got into doing what I'm doing now.
And your first job was as a bricklayer, is that right?
Yeah, I really don't know how I became a bricklayer. I left school at 15, like all the other kids I knew at that time. I'd start work on the Monday morning, and I was assigned to go to a hospital in Manchester to do some patching up work. And as I got there, my master bricklayer, Cliff Marsh, said, "Go and get us some water." I went looking around for a tap, couldn't find a tap, wandered into this ward, and it was full of kids, full of young boys. They're all boys, maybe 25 to 30 of them, looked like an average age of about 7 or 8 to 14, 15, some of them my age. They were all laughing. There's a big table in the middle of the ward, and they seemed to be enjoying themselves, which I found strange, as this was in a hospital, and none of them had any hair on. They were all bald. And the matron, I think, sensed what I was thinking, what is this all about? And she came and stood at the side of me, and she said, "They've got something called leukemia." She used the word child leukemia. She says, and the reason they've not got any hair, she explained all this without me asking, is that they're on this treatment called chemotherapy, and it's very painful. And it was quite shocking for me at that age. Had a difficulty in handling it. But what she said next was devastating. She said, "Not one of these boys will live past the age of 21. They'll all be dead at 20. And I had a major problem in handling that emotionally, but didn't know what to do about it. And then when 25 years later, when I started, and I'd opened a health club in Bolton, I found a way of doing something for these boys for child leukemia, and that got me on the raising money, because what I tried to do was promote the club, because nobody knew what the club was about at that time. We're going back to 1970, 71. I decided to do something that had embraced both what I did as a fitness guy and make some kind of demonstration to the public who I wanted to get in through the door, and raise money for child leukemia with Christie's Hospital in Manchester. And that's how I got into doing charity work and combining it with what I did for not just a living, but what I enjoyed doing.
And at that time, when you started kind of makeshift gyms and obviously the health club, some people must have thought you were mad. How did you deal with people's doubt of what you were doing? Because obviously the fitness scene was 100th of the size it is now.
Yeah. We effectively invented the club concept with what we did in Bolton. So it was difficult explaining what we were about. I didn't even know what I were about, what the club was about. The only word that we knew was keep fit, as they got in church halls and all of that stuff. But I always thought that what we developed was unique, and I thought if we keep doing this, we'll do okay. And we were right on that. I'd had about 7 or 8 gyms before I opened in Marsall Street, and registered it as Bolton Health Studio. And they were all in cellars. Some of the gyms weren't much bigger than this room that we're in now. And I knew I needed more space, but I didn't know why I needed more space. I felt instinctively, there was no vision about it at all. I just felt instinctively what people wanted. And when we opened the health club in Bolton, I gave them what they wanted. And I think, I mean, it sounds strange, but I put a restaurant in a bloody gym, for God's sake. You know, they flagged floors and whitewashed walls, 2 light bulbs in a room of 400 to 500 square feet. And I remembered I had a gym in the centre of Bolton, just in a little side street in the centre of Bolton, in a cellar. And they call it Chancery Lane Barbell Club because that's all it had, with barbells and dumbbells, and it was in Chancery Lane. And I'd had that for about 4 or 5 years, and it was the Friday before Christmas. And I'm sat there on a bench. I'd gone down at 5:30, 6 o'clock to open up. Nobody had been in. Nobody came in at all that night. And I'm sat on a bench feeling sorry for myself, thinking I better lock up and go home. I've got 2 kids at home, and Brenda will be wanting to get me tea ready. And I'm sat there feeling miserable. And I'd put some motivational posters up around the gym maybe a year before. And for no apparent reason, I looked over my left shoulder. On the wall there was a poster that just said, "If you think you can, you can." And I got up instinctively. Don't know why I got up. I walked to the poster, and my arms went out to the side. I didn't think why I were doing it, and it indicated that I wanted more space. I think the gym was about 450 square feet, 27 feet long, 14 feet across, flagged floors, whitewashed walls, 2 light bulbs, no running water, no changing rooms, and significantly no women. And for whatever reason, something came to me there that I could change all of this if I got more space. My arms went out towards the walls. And I immediately, the day after, went out and found more space. And that's when we opened Bolton Health Studio in Marsall Street. I'd had 3 or 4 years at another set of premises and doing literally everything wrong, but learning from everything that we'd done wrong.
I'm really fascinated about the journey from your dad's boxing, weightlifting memories you've just given us to that point in the gym and the bricklayer and the hospital. There must be something that's happened in between. So I guess it was the Second World War. So how old were you when the war broke out? And during wartime, you were in the paras. So was there an aspect of that period which really increased your focus on fitness and strength training?
Well, it started with Dad. There was no question about that. Dad would go to all lengths to, as I was lacking in academic skills, they kept pushing me towards the fitness side. It was 1950 when I started, so only 5 years after World War II. No equipment whatsoever. And I joined a gym round the corner from where I lived, only a couple of 100 yards from where I lived, called the King's Hall, the old King's Hall they called it. And it was a disused cinema and only shown silent films. And it was full of fantastic weightlifters. And this club probably only had about 50 members. I don't know, I can't remember that. But they had 8 or 9 people who were all champion weightlifters. So I wandered into this place, and immediately they put their arms around me and helped me with all kinds of things. It was the most inspiring level of education that I could have had. They taught me everything about levers and about lifting and about independence and about how to concentrate, about weight loss and weight gain, and all of this was done at that particular time. And I see a lot of that in what I opened up 25 years later, when I opened Bolton Health Studio. There's community and clubs and the need for getting people together and people keeping them happy. And that's what got me into training and kept me into training. And I found out over the years that I was more capable of endurance stuff than I were at strength. I mean, I had the guy called Jim Halliday. He was an Olympian. He'd been 5-6 years in prisoner of war camp in Burma, 6 stone when he came back in 1945, 46, and he lifted in the Olympic Games at 2 years later and won silver medal as a weightlifter. These were the guys who inspired me, and these are the guys I wanted to be like. I mean, I would never have made a weightlifter. I just physiologically, I weren't capable of that kind of explosive power. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I realised that I had good endurance skills, and I'm still doing that now at the age of nearly 90.
And obviously, you have this incredible mentality. A lot of people lack. I mean, your mentality is next level. But for people who are struggling to motivate themselves to take their fitness journey to the next level, take their career to the next level, what message would you have to someone who just needs that bit of a push?
Well, and this is something that I practiced when we were teaching other people how to work out and what they had to do. And a big one for starting at the end. Where is it going to take me? You know, do I want to be a runner? Do I want to do the London Marathon? Whatever it is. And through a series of questions and trying to find out what you really wanted gives you an ability to read how you're going to go put the kind of programs together that will get them what they want. And you ask them certain questions that essentially are there to motivate them to achieve what it is that, I mean, I'm still doing that. I don't want to do any more coaching, but they keep coming to me and saying, and because I swim a lot, there's 2 ladies who are in the 60s and 70s who couldn't swim the crawl. One of them was this condition that fuses all the joints and the hands are closed, so she can't pull in the water, whether it's breaststroke or the crawl. But both of them wanted to learn how to do the crawl. So I get them in the water and I make them feel a little bit ridiculous so that they're not thinking about the water, they're thinking about being ridiculous. And then I said, look, I asked the question, how far do you want to swim? They don't know. So we set some figures between us and they don't know that they're setting figures. So, for example, they both said, I'd like to be able to do 2 lengths or 3 lengths with the crawl. I said, well, if you can do 2 lengths, 3 lengths, you can do a mile. Why don't we set the target at a mile? And both of them, one's 70 odd and the other one's 60 odd, they'll get in the water. The one of them was only with me, called in yesterday, I'm having a coffee, and she came over and she said, I've just done 90 lengths. She's doing 90 lengths 90 times for the charity. And she's 70 odd years of age, and I watch her when in the water, and I get a hell of a kick seeing them do what they're doing. So it's about projecting what they want and then keep reinforcing it by doing what you think is going to get them there. That's how you get these people achieving what they're achieving.
And when it comes to strength training, it is very much the received wisdom today that strength training is important for bone density, longevity, reduction, Alzheimer's, many aspects. But when you were doing this in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, it definitely wasn't.
No.
So what did you see then that people see now?
Well, right at the beginning, there was nothing else. All you had were gyms. You didn't even have showers. The gym didn't have a telephone. Everything was basic, just as the gyms I opened after that. Well, they were all into strength. There's 5 or 6, they were champions, Lancashire champions, Northern Counties champions, British champions, even Olympic champions. And they inspired me. They just inspired me because they could do it. And I kept wondering why the hell I couldn't do it, because I was training harder than what they were training. I didn't know anything about levers and about explosive power, about power and endurance and what you were built and your physiology. I think it's very important now that we look at the physiology of what people can do, and then you can program to get the best out of themselves. And if we keep motivating them by keep reminding them of what they're going to be doing and what they can do, then I think you get a lot more success that way.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about your wife, Brenda.
Well, I came out of the army in 1956. I'd done 2 years with the Paras. And I came in 56 and I was looking for a gym to train at. And there's a guy, an ex-wrestler called Cab Cashford, he had a gym in the centre of Bolton. And my wife was a member of Brenda was a member of this club in 1956. I didn't actually get it. Cab was kind of a matchmaker, if you like. He tried to get men and women together to get married and produce babies or whatever it was that he had in mind. And he paired me off with another girl to go to this particular event, But I didn't go with the other girl. I went with Brenda. And we got friendly, and she was an ardent trainer at that time, and she was physiologically better than what I was at strength. And she could bend 6-inch nails at 17 years of age and turn a telephone directory in half. So the marriage was then forecast as, I guess, who's the boss here, because she was the boss. But it was a relationship made in heaven. It was a fabulous marriage that we've had. And whatever I did, she joined into it. And if we ever had altercations or arguments or whatever it was never about training and never about what I wanted to do to raise money for charity. But I got Brenda involved with that. I think in answer to your question, it was a teamwork that kept me training and kept Brenda involved, and wherever I did, she ran it. She made it all worthwhile.
Can you talk in that context about the development of the training course? I think it's called the NABA training course you developed.
Well, yeah. The question that we got asked almost every week that we was in business: are your instructors qualified? And of course, there were no qualifications in them days. BAWLA, that's the British Amateur Weightlifters Association, had a training course, but all they taught me was how to do the snatch, the press, and the clean and jerk. And Alice, who's got 3 kids and she's 35 years of age, doesn't want to know how to do the clean and jerk, does she? So I thought, we need to get something moving, and we'll have to do this ourselves because nobody can do this better than I can. So I looked at what I was doing in the gyms, and I'd been doing for 20 years, and I put the course around that. I put a framework of exercises together that facilitated that. I'd had 6 or 7 gyms at this stage, small gyms, and if anybody joined, I always sent a part of that to NABA. So whenever I needed any help on anything, Oscar Eidenstam would be there for me. And he was probably the most influential bloke in bodybuilding in the world at the time, because NABA was in about 62, 63 different countries. And he put the Mr. Universe. As I got a little bit older, I was a judge at the Universe on many, many occasions. But we'd obviously we'd developed this bond between us. So one day I went down by train to London, and I went to the NABA offices, which is about as big as this room here. I said, I've got this idea about putting this training course together, something that we can match with BAWLA. And as soon as you said it would match it with BAWLA, because they were the opposite to BAWLA, I said, and I need a brand. I need something that people identify with. What about me using the NABA logo, the NABA concept, and whatever student I get onto my training courses, I'll give you £5 or whatever it was that we agreed on at that time. We put 90,000 quid into the NABA coffers in the next 18 years or so after that, through people coming onto our courses. But we developed the courses to 10 or 12 different courses, from just being a basic instructor, management and so on. And all the, which I forgot now, they're all peak performance courses, and established a level that could get you into a PT course. We developed that in the early 90s.
So Ken, when you turned 40, you ran 40 miles, lift 40,000 pounds of weight, 4 squat matches and 400 sit-ups. And that wasn't enough. And so when you hit 50, you repeated the challenge, but did 50-mile run, 50,000 pounds of weight lifted, 5 squat matches and 500 sit-ups. What was the idea behind those challenges?
I think not having a logical brain, I think. It was something to do with just coming up with an idea and think, bloody hell, I've committed myself now, I've got to do it, haven't I? The 40th birthday was, people were telling me then, as they're telling me now, because everybody's expecting me to pop my clogs when I'm doing these open water swims now, and doing 90 lengths in the morning, then 90 lengths in the afternoon at the age of 90. It was just an ambition to exceed what I've done in the past. And that again came from my dad. We've got a clip of my dad being present when I think I was doing my 40th birthday, my 50th, I can't remember. And he's got, I'm Ken's dad on the T-shirt, He'd love this. He'd love what we're doing now. He'd love what... and it was the inspiration that still exists today. But the 40th birthday, and Brenda even got involved in that to a high degree, because I'd done the run, I'd done the lifting, I'd done the thing, and I'd done the sit-ups, and that was to finish the day, you see, except that Brenda said, I think we should reward everybody who's helped us to do this, take them home, we'll have a party. So I partied to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning after doing all of that, and we toasted the dawn with strawberries and champagne and bacon butties. And Brenda always said, you can't have bacon butties without having brown sauce. So we'd have bacon butties and brown sauce. And when we did it again at 50, and I finished the day by doing the 500 sit-ups, Brenda said to me, I think we should go up to home and reward all the people who helped us. And I did. So we partied till the early hours, and we toasted the dawn with champagne and strawberries and brown sauce. Don't forget the brown sauce.
Now, you're incredibly eloquent, incredibly physically active. You're going to be 90 years old on the 18th of July. You're going to be swimming 90 lengths of a swimming pool and also doing an open water swim. If somebody is 30 or 40 years old and is doing minimal exercise at the moment, what's your advice to them?
Don't do 90 lengths in the pool and 90 lengths in open water. Get somebody who can teach them the right thing and progress until you can do it, as we did with the 2 ladies, Christine and Anne, who are now in the 70s and 80s. Well, she's not 80, Anne, I don't think, but she's getting on that way.
But how important has fitness been to the way you are today through your life?
It's been everything, hasn't it? It's got to be everything. I can still do so many things that I couldn't do if I hadn't have trained and had that mentality. It's 95% of it is up here in the mind, and I think it starts with mindset. And you try and do that when you're training people. You try and change their early mindset by suggesting things that they don't know what they're doing, like I did with Anne and Christine and dozens of others and thousands of others in the past. And I think that that means, who was it who said it's not the fittest or the strongest, but the ones that adapt, which is what I've bought into over the years. And when I couldn't lift anymore, and I found out I could run, I started to do the running. And when the legs had gone, I started to do the swimming. So I'm still doing something at the age of 90 that my dad had taught me when I was 8 or 9 years of age, when I joined the Farwood Swimming Club. So it's a matter of mindset, I think, and developing that mindset. It doesn't come straight away. You've got to keep working at it like you have with everything else in life, and having that mindset, and I think that's why I'm still doing it at this age. I've got the mindset not to give in on that, but that I think was installed with my dad in the early stages.
What were your key motivators on days where you really didn't feel like it?
You get into habits. Ines, you do get into these habits that don't let you. You know, you might have a negative day, but that goes because your mindset is, what I'm doing is important to me, so I'm keeping on doing it. And a lot of that is by setting goals and seeing yourself progress through the stages. I know that, you know, if you run marathons, you're going to hit the wall at some stage. How do you get through that wall? And that's a great analogy of overcoming what it, you know, when you're having bad days, you know that it'll pass. And I keep saying that to myself as I have a bad day. I mean, Brenda died last year, and it's been a tough, really tough year. And I keep saying to myself, this'll pass, this'll pass, this'll pass. And the immediate blockages do pass. And that gets you back into the things that help you to be progressive in whatever you're doing, whether it's running, whether it's swimming, whether it's lifting weights, whether it's studying, whether it's reading, whatever it is. You'll get through it because you believe that it'll pass.
And you became the chairman of the British Fitness Industry Association.
We united gyms from all over the country, and I was essentially very, very important to that because there were so many people who'd worked their way through the ranks. We started with gyms with flag floors and whitewashed walls, and I'd done that, and I was the only one out of all that group of people who'd been there and got the history and that credibility of working your way through all them decades of exercise.
When you turned 74, you decided to take up mountaineering. What was the idea behind that?
Well, Paul, really, my son Paul, Sam's dad, we were going up there for lunch or something, Brenda and I, and we were talking, and he said they'd just made their minds up, about 3 or 4 of them, that they were going to climb the Matterhorn in Switzerland. And I thought, that'll be good, I could raise some money on that for the charity, you see. So I said, could you accommodate a 75-year-old? And they were all only in the 50s, these guys. So for no apparent reason, they said, yeah, we can accommodate a 75-year-old. So I had to get in training for climbing bloody mountains, for God's sake. And I went up to the Lake District and found a coach and started to do all these kind of things on the sides of mountains and so on. Totally out of character for me. But again, another incredible learning experience that you come so close to. What was it Thoreau said? One day I came face to face with death and realised that I'd never lived. Well, when you're on a bloody peak at 20,000 feet to 10,000 feet and you're looking down and that stuff at the bottom, with motor cars and people, you know that you're in trouble. And particularly when you get into them high and you're on your own, there's nobody around that can help you. So that got me into that. And fortunately, Brenda taught me how to not do it again.
Now, a lot of people would say, I don't want to get into fitness and weight training and so on because you always get injured. But you've obviously been doing it your entire life. Have you had situations where you've been injured, and how have you overcome those issues?
I've had every injury in the boot, but yeah, I've had a knee. The legs went in the early 50s. I mean, I was running good at that stage in my life. I found out I could do endurance stuff. I found out I could be quite good at it. I got the physiology to be as good as the Ronnie Hills and the Mike Freeries and Stevie Kenyons of this world. But I put up good performances. and I found out that I could absorb the training, which was good. And then and I competed in 5 World Masters Championship, winning gold on one of them, winning silver in another, and teamwork, nearly all team. I'm still friends with these guys. They're going to be turning up for my birthday party on the 20th of July. I'll be rubbing shoulders with Running Loyalty. Mike Freary has broke 2 world records over 10 miles. Stevie Kenyon held the Great North Run record for 31 years, and it took Mo Farah to break it. And Steve will be there at the party. I'm good friends with Steve. I'm good friends with Mike. There'll be a guy there. I think Paul's son is an international athlete. He'll be there. Wherever I've been into, whether it's been running, whether it's been swimming, or whether it's weightlifting and bodybuilding, I've made some wonderful friends in that, and that in itself is worthwhile.
Absolutely. I think the community aspect of fitness is critical. And I think your comment in answering to my question, injuries, and you said your legs went in your 50s, and yet you answered Angus's question about mountaineering when you were 74. I think that underscores to everybody that even if you're injured, you can overcome your injuries and still reach new heights.
Yeah, you just got to change, adapt to wherever you've got or wherever you've not got.
So obviously swimming has become a big thing for you in your 80s.
My dad again.
Could you tell me a little bit more about the overall swims you've done?
There's an unbelievable story which I'd love to tell.
Please do. I'd love to.
No, my dad... we're coming up to May the 8th, 1945, when the war ended. The whole world had come to a stop. Winston Churchill at 3 o'clock in the afternoon was to announce the victory over Europe. You could drop a pin in outside or inside, and you'd hear it drop. It was that much of a day. But 3 miles down the road at the Newtown Colliery, my dad were working 1,000 feet down and a mile into the coal face. And at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, as Winston Churchill were giving his speech about prosperity and how much our lives would improve because of the victory, my dad got his back broke in 3 places. And he lived through it. It didn't sever the spine. There were vertebrae. It would take him 8 months to recover sufficiently enough just to walk and swim. And he'd always wanted me to swim. And while he was in hospital, he got somebody called Jimmy Gregory who would give me lessons. And Jimmy would give me the lessons on the principles that I've been talking about. And he taught me how to swim the crawl. And when my dad came out of hospital that Christmas, and again the Friday before Christmas seems to have some kind of significance with my life, we found ourselves going down to Farnworth Baths, walking across the market in the snow and going into the pool. And it was Friday night, club night. He joined me in the Farnworth Swimming Club. And we got into the swimming pool and we got changed and made our way onto the pool side. And all the swimmers, my idols, the people who were the first team swimmers, some fabulous swimmers. I can name you the team now. That's like 75 years, 80 years, whatever it is, because I must have been 9 or 10 years of age at that time. They were all stood round the pool, fully dressed, their arms folded, clothes on the back, and not going in the water. They hadn't had a delivery of coal for 2 weeks because of the end of the war. It were rationed of whatever fuel they were using. So there were no heating on in the pool. I found out later it was 3 degrees, the water. An old Victorian building, Accrington stock brick, didn't hold heat in any way, shape or form. But my dad got into the water and he looked up at me, and everybody's looking, and I'm looking at all these swimmers, all fully dressed. I'm only 9 years of age, I think 10, probably just 10 years of age. They're all looking at me and they're looking at my dad, and I'm looking at my dad and looking at them. And he put his hand up, he lifted his finger, and he just said, "Come on, Kenneth. You always call me Kenneth. Let's just do one length." And then we went. And we swam that length. And to this day, that's the fastest length I've ever swum. We got out at the other side and we're walking down by the side of the pool. And they're all there with their arms folded. My dad very, very quietly just said to me, "You've just beaten this lot tonight, Kenneth. You've got to be in it to win it." And that's one of the reasons why I keep training. You've got to be in it to do it. And I want to fast forward, 72 years. And I'm swimming Lake Windermere that year, the full length of it. I'd committed myself to swimming the full length, which is 10.5 miles. I'm 82 years of age. I'd swum the full length of Coniston before that, and I'd swum the Great North Swim before that. So we're doing 3 mega swims. And Brenda and I had gone up in the car to Lake Windermere the night before. We stayed at a little hotel just facing the pier where I was supposed to get in on the following day. And the shutters have been rattled all night, and I hardly got any sleep. The rain was belting into the front of the building, coming from the southeast and coming right in the direction of where I was going to swim. So I got out, it was just getting light, and I could see the boat that was going to steer me across the lake, and it was bobbing up and down so like some giant bloody cork. And I went, the rain in your face, and I'm walking, and I saw the guy when I got nearer to the boat. "Where do I get in?" And he pointed to go back into the start of the pier and get in at the side of the pier and use the pier to get out into the water. And I was starting to lose it. I felt that I could have just reached up and touched the clouds, and they were sweeping above me. The weather was atrocious. I was in knee-deep in sludge at the side of and I lost it. I lost the bottle. And I'm thinking of every single way I could get out of that swim. We'll do it another day. I didn't want to do it another one. I wanted to do it that day. And I'm just ready to turn round and get out of the water. And who should pop up out of the water but my dad? And he said, "Come on, Kenneth, let's just do one length." And off I went. And I believe it or not, I was laughing when I went into the pool.
Amazing. Phenomenal story.
Ken, your story is absolutely incredible, and it's going to inspire thousands, we hope. And
well, there's some really good stories. I got in, when I opened the squash courts, I was reading something about a guy called Jonah Barrington in the Telegraph. And I thought, I got to get to know this guy, fittest guy in the world. And I had a squash pro for our squash courts in the gym. And I said, "How do I get in front of Jonah?" He said, "Well, he's got an exhibition on in Warrington this Sunday." He said, "Why don't we go over?" So I went over. I couldn't get near him at all. But he went in the showers. So I went in the showers with him.
Where's the will, there's a way.
Well, there's a will, there's a way. And I'm talking to him. And he's saying, "What do you do? Who is this idiot?" With the Lancashire accent, with the Bolton accent. I said, "I have a gym in Bolton and I've got squash courts." And immediately I was on his side. "I'll come and have a look at it." Because he trained with a guy called Rude Martin. I knew he were on weights in London, the British champion. And that stuck up the relationship between me and Jonah, which was fabulous, Good 10 years. Really, really good.
Fantastic. Well, Ken, thank you so much for coming on the Lift for Life podcast. Now, obviously, we would like to ask you about the challenge you're doing on your 90th birthday, but we're going to get your grandson, Sam, to come on and sit where you are right now. So, Sam, thank you for coming on the podcast briefly. Can you tell us a little bit more about the challenge itself and what you're looking to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this all came about from my granddad being 50 odd years in extreme sports and wanting to raise some money and also commemorating the beautiful life of our nana and his wife of 65, nearly 70 years. We decided that it was a perfect time to create community challenge around fitness and around trying to strive for better and to strive to have a better and longer lasting life, which is something that both my nana and my papa have pioneered for all their lives in the fitness industry. So we thought that my granddad's 90th birthday was a perfect time to do that. Obviously turning 90 in July. And we thought, well, how can we get other people involved in this challenge? So, I mean, as you already spoke about, he's going to be swimming 90 lengths of a pool and then 90 lengths in open water, all in a day, which for most people is quite a big challenge, but certainly for somebody at 90 is even bigger. And I said, as somebody who's admittedly not in the best shape of my life, or certainly in a bit better shape the last 6 months, but and has been wanting to try and find a reason to get into fitness as well and to try and, you know, make my life a bit longer and benefit it more. So I said, well, I'll carry on in the footsteps of your challenges that you would do in your 40s and 50s. So I'll swim the 90 lengths with you, I'll lift 90,000 pounds, and I'll play 9 sets of tennis. I don't play squash, unfortunately, or not very well, so I thought tennis would be a good...
900 sit-ups?
Well, and then I knew you were going to say that. You were going to say about the maybe running 90 miles as well, but I don't think I'll be able to get all of it done in a day. I did think about the 900 sit-ups, but I honestly think that doing the last 9 set of tennis is going to take me a good 6 hours. So I think by that point, I think it might be knocking on the end of the day. So yeah, we decided that we wanted to do that, and we've come together and we've been working on it the last six or 7 months, which has been great. And we also wanted to try and find a reason to get other people involved as well. So we've been doing lots of social media. We've come on great podcasts like, you know, with yourselves and trying to spread the message that way and getting other people to take on their own 90 inspired challenges. So whether that's doing a 90k bike ride or whether it's, you know, a 90-mile run, or it could be even smaller scale. We've had people who are doing walking 9,000 steps for the next 9 days, and they're pledging that on. You know, there's a couple of websites that we're working with Bolton Council where people can make their pledges onto on what they're going to do for our Not Out in 90 challenge, and there's obviously our donation page where people can donate. But it's just great to try and get people to be more involved in fitness and trying to push themselves to do things that they never thought they might not be able, never thought that they could do before. And that's kind of the ethos of what what Not Out in 90 is about. It is about just pushing yourself and about trying to strive for better, strive for a longer, healthier, happier life.
Yeah. We obviously heard on the interview with your grandfather about leukemia, which is one of the charities you're raising money for. Could you tell us more about the other charities and the links to this?
Yeah, so we're trying to raise £90,000 for Alzheimer's research, cancer research, and stroke awareness. I think my granddad's had a long-standing association with cancer research and Alzheimer's research and has always done lots of charitable events and fundraising for those over the last sort of 50, 60 years. And then obviously stroke awareness is something that's close to our heart because Nana sadly died of sort of stroke-related illness last year after being struck down, pretty much, I wouldn't say in her prime because she was in her 70s, but she wasn't by any stretch of the imagination unwell or unfit by any stretch. You know, she was bowling every single day pretty much, or as much as she could. She was very active, very social, always on her feet, never lay down, never really rested too much, kind of like my granddad as well. And sadly had a freak stroke that took majority of what made her so brilliant away from her. Battled really hard for the next four and a half years after that as well. You know, she managed to get her speech back or some of her speech back and managed to walk again. And, you know, she was a tough old bird and always had been. So yeah, trying to raise £90,000 for those charitable causes that essentially are trying to make people live longer, healthier and happier lives. And if we can do that, then and make a little dint in that'd be fantastic. So yeah, any efforts and any donations are always appreciated because that's our mission for this as well. It's not only to prove to yourself that you can do things, but to try and help other people.
Fantastic. Well, Sam, thank you so much for explaining the challenge. And to the listeners all across the world, hundreds of thousands of you, please do donate to this amazing challenge and the cause. And we can't wait to hear how you guys get on. And Sam particularly, I can't wait for those 900 sit-ups.
maybe the next challenge will be 900 sit-ups. We'll have to see how much energy we've got at the end of the 18th of July. But you know, anything's possible. If he can do it, then I'm sure I can.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Nice one, guys.
Thanks.